two ill-equipped best friends tell you about history. I'm Emileigh, and this is Morgan.
Hello.
How are you today?
I am so good. I'm itchy because I still have bug bites all over me, but other than that, I'm good. How are you, Emileigh?
I, too, am itchy from being completely covered in poison ivy. You're going to hear more about it on our bonus episode tomorrow. But let's just say it looks like I bear hugged a tree of poison ivy. It's the worst I've ever had it. Mm-hmm. And I've had a steroid shot, and now I'm on steroid pills and creams.
And antihistamines.
And salt. And antihistamines.
And antibiotics, right?
And antibiotics now, yes. So, because why wouldn't it get infected, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's getting better, but I had to wear a long sleeve shirt to work today because it's so rough. And I'm in marketing, so I don't want people to look at me like I'm diseased.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And the person who is in charge of, like, the organization this year was like, hey, do you want to talk? Can I drag you up in, like, 10 minutes to talk about upcoming events? And I'm like, sure.
Oh, I love that for you. Impromptu
so
public speeches.
Yes. So thankfully, all of my Walking Dead looking scabs were covered, and I even got a compliment on the dress.
Yay!
So all is well. We have, it's probably going to be a short one for us today.
That's fine.
And you'll see why. It's recording of women in the 1700s, so like
there's like 2 sentences for each person.
Yeah, she was a woman and she did a thing, and that's all you need to know.
Yeah. And then she died.
At
date undisclosed.
Because we didn't care.
Yeah.
So I guess we could just get into it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. It's Monday morning in a middle school history class, and the bell rings signaling the beginning of the lesson.
Good morning, students. I hope you all had a great weekend and are ready for more about the Revolutionary War, specifically women's role in the war.
Do we have to?
Sounds
too awful. Early. Why do we have to learn about women? That's so boring.
Did you say women were boring?
Yeah. I want to hear about the men fighting. That's way cooler.
You know, there were some women that fought in the Revolutionary War, right?
No, there wasn't. Women were stuck at the house and making bread and babies and baskets and stuff.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, they were.
No, they weren't.
Yes, they were. Why would you say that? I can't believe that is so rude.
Yeah, well, you're a turd head.
Well, you know what? Your mom stinks.
Your mom stinks.
Your face stinks.
Class, that is enough. She's right. There were women who fought in the war. They might be few and far between, but it's true. Some also followed their husbands into war camps to give the troops the support they needed. They were not, in fact, all stuck at home with babies or whatever you said. Now, if you would all settle down, we're going to talk about some of those women who fought alongside the men.
Yes,
ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am. Thank you. Now turn to page 447.
So today, guys, we're going to talk about 3 women who actually fought in the Revolutionary War. I thought since today is the 3rd, July the 3rd, tomorrow being the 4th of July.
That's right.
Independence Day.
You're right.
Yes, I thought I could go heavy on some kind of revolutionary thing, and we love talking about some strong-ass women on this podcast.
Yes, we fucking do.
So, these women were incredible. Unfortunately, like we said before, there's not too much on them. There were a couple books that I didn't have the time to even get my hands on. Mm-hmm. So, I'm sure if you wanted to go more in depth, you could probably find some books. I was finding a lot of children's books, and I'm like, I feel like Google will give me just as much info.
Yeah.
So I might as well just stick with this.
I ran into the same thing when I was researching Wilma Rudolph. It was almost only like Google resources and children's books.
Yes. Yes. And then you found that, one book?
Yeah. That like had a lot of information. It wasn't even a biography. It was more of like an analysis of her life.
We need to talk more about women, guys.
Yes! That's what we're here for, Emma.
Yeah. Not just women, everyone, but we love women.
Yes.
So,
yes.
All right. As a reminder, okay, if you want to hear more about the Revolutionary War, go to last year's episodes. I'm not going to regale you. We all know what happened if you don't go back.
We've talked several times about the Revolutionary War.
So, as a refresher, a reminder, the war was between April 19th, 1775, and it didn't officially end until September 3rd of 1783.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was it? That 8 years? Something or another like that?
Something like that, yeah. I can't do math right now.
That's all right. So the first woman we're going to talk about is Margaret Corbin.
Okay.
So in her young life, she was born in Franklin County, Pennsylvania on November the 12th of 1751. Her and I believe it was her brother and her parents lived kind of on the edge of the American frontier, which at the time left them very vulnerable to native tribes that were not very friendly with settlers coming in, and also very limited access to food and medicine. So her parents decided it would be safer, that this was not a place for children to grow up, and sent her brother and her off to an uncle's house. I don't know which side, but an uncle's house. So a couple months later, poor Margaret lost both of her parents because of a native raid.
Oh, no.
They killed their father and then took her mother, and then she just disappeared. So I don't even want to think about what happened.
Oh, that's awful.
It was tragic, but her and her brother were safe because they were already at their uncle's, who adopted them officially and raised them into adulthood. So in 1772, just 3 years before the war, at the age of 21, she married a guy named John Corbin. And they lived on a small farm in the Pennsylvania area for 3 years, just doing what married people do, I guess. Living on a farm, just vibing.
Living and farming.
Living and farming. And in 1775, when the war broke out, John joined the Pennsylvania military.
Okay.
But she didn't have the family to rely on while John was gone. So she would have had to provide for and protect herself on this farm.
Yeah, you're right.
So she decided she was going to go to war with her husband.
Wow.
And like many other women did, followed their husbands, and they were known as camp followers. And they earned money by cooking and doing laundry for soldiers, taking care of the sick, being in the background and doing extremely important work. Unfortunately, because they're women and men back then were dicks, they received small wages and rations.
Oh.
And they had to operate as if they were their own business. So they just had to deal with what they had, but still provide for the soldiers.
Like they had to get their own materials and stuff to kind of do business with.
Yes, they had no special treatment, and they were in, the exact same conditions that the soldiers were in. It was a rough go.
Yeah.
And a lot of these women got bad reputations because they were viewed as sex workers, even though they were providing a very important service, and half of them were married to the soldiers.
Right.
Yeah. They also would provide food and water to soldiers during battle.
Wow.
Or carry more ammunition or powder to artillery troops.
Wow.
And George Washington, at the time, General George Washington, he didn't have a very good view, apparently, of camp followers, but also allowed them to be there because he knew they were important. So it's, which one is it, General George Washington, sir? And this even baffles me because his wife, Martha, was like joined him on the campaign several times during the war.
I wonder if it was a thing where it was like he understood why they were there, but he didn't necessarily agree or like think that they were necessary. I don't know.
Or maybe he thought they were taking up too many rations that the troops could use, or it didn't really go into detail, but it just said he didn't think too highly of them, but allowed them to be there.
Gotcha.
So during this time, we're looking at about 1776 now. Fort Washington was one of the last major forts held by the Continental Army at this point in the war, because, like we said in the other episodes, the war ebbed and flowed. It wasn't always, the rebels winning. Like, it wasn't always.
Yeah. No,
the British were kind of kicking some butt there at the beginning.
Yeah, it wasn't until, like, I think we talked about, like, this Washington's crossing of the Delaware, where, like, there were more rebel wins in the war.
Yes.
In general.
Yes. So at this point, the Continental Army was really getting their butts kind of kicked.
Yeah.
And Fort Washington was kind of the last major stronghold of the Continental Army in 1776. And the army, the military, sent John's artillery regiment to protect the fort because they knew the British were coming to the fort. And on November 16th of 1776, while a battle was raging on, Margaret Corbin dressed up as a man and joined her husband on the battlefield at Fort Washington and was helping him load his cannons.
Holy shit.
This is really sad. He was killed.
Oh, no.
Like, right in front of her. Like,
oh,
come
how
on.
awful. Oh, that's so sad.
And you know what she did? She started firing that damn cannon instead. She took over his job. I'm getting chills.
It's personal now. Ugh.
It's personal. And other soldiers commented that Captain Molly, because Molly was it was like a nickname for Margaret.
Yeah.
Yeah. Captain Molly's steady aim and sure shot.
Wow.
She eventually was hit by enemy fire 3 times, Morgan, which nearly severed her left arm and left her jaw and her left breast wounded.
Oh my God.
The British eventually won this battle. British doctors saved Margaret's life. She was unable to use that arm for the rest of her life.
Mm-hmm.
But she lived, and she was among a number of prisoners that were just released back into the care of the revolutionary hospitals. They're like, you can't fight anymore, so whatever.
Right.
She was left to support herself alone now that her husband was dead.
And one arm.
And she struggled financially, obviously.
That's so sad.
But the army, recognizing that she was basically a soldier at this point, sent her to West Point, New York, which was a home for the Invalid Regiment. So this regiment was made up of very severely injured troops who could no longer provide a service, but also were injured enough to where they really couldn't do any day-to-day work, earning a living. So it was just kind of a home for troops who couldn't support themselves anymore. She eventually, after she recovered from her injuries as best as she could, she would continue to aid the wounded until she was formerly discharged in 1783. So she lived there for a long time.
Wow.
While she was there, on July the 6th of 1779, the Continental Congress awarded her with a lifelong pension.
Oh, good.
Equivalent, unfortunately, to half of the male combatants.
Oh.
But that's shitty. She did only fight in one battle, so I think it's not too bad of a trade-off.
Yeah.
And they also gave her a full suit of clothes and replaced the ones that were ruined in the conflict.
Aww.
So they gave her a new uniform. And in 1782, just a year before she left West Point, she married another wounded soldier, but he unfortunately died just a year later.
Oh, no.
I know. She was described as gruff and unfeminine, and she made a few friends among, the women during her time, but she felt more at home smoking and conversing with the other soldiers.
I love that.
I love her. She died near West Point. I believe she was 48
man.
or 49. But I mean, with the injuries, I just don't think she ever was the same.
Yeah.
And in 1926, her remains were moved from a very small, obscure grave to actual West Point, not near West Point, but because the grave was beside the Hudson River.
Yeah.
They moved her to West Point, where she was buried with full military honors.
Oh, I got full chills, down to my ankles. Oh.
I know. And a plaque at Fort Tryon Park in Manhattan says, quote, "as the first woman to take a soldier's part in the war for liberty."
Oh.
She was the first woman to be given a pension of some kind.
Oh. My goosebumps.
I know.
Oh.
Go, Margaret. And she is just I love the pictures of these women, the way they're
yes,
depicted. She is such a badass.
She looks like she's mouthing off to someone in her picture.
She does.
She's got her hands on her hips, and she's like, "Hey, asshole.
You killed my husband.
I love it.
Prepare to die." So, we've got woman number 2.
Okay.
Molly Ludwig Hayes. I don't know if you've ever heard of Molly Pitcher before.
I think I may have. I may have read a book, a little book about her in school a long time ago.
I'm going to say this little disclaimer before we get too much into her.
Okay.
There are a lot of historians that say Molly Pitcher, quote unquote, is a fictional character who represented the many women working on the battlefields.
Gotcha.
But there is a historical figure, an actual person named Mary Ludwig Hayes that many believe was the real Molly Pitcher.
Okay.
Because Molly was also another nickname for Mary at the time, because I don't know, they couldn't think of any other freaking nicknames. If you're Margaret, you're Molly. If you're Mary, you're Molly.
Okay. That's not confusing at all.
No. This is a different Molly.
Okay.
So in her early life, she was born October 13th of 1754, so just a few years younger than Margaret. And a lot of historians kind of argue where exactly she was born. It was either in Philly or New Jersey.
Okay.
Which are about an hour apart, so not really that big of a deal.
Right.
Her parents were German immigrants, and it is likely that she would have learned to read and write.
Okay.
And when she was in her early 20s, she married a barber named William Hayes. And right at the beginning of the war, just most men did at the time, he too enlisted in the 4th Pennsylvania Artillery when the war began.
Okay.
So she, too, decided to join her husband at the Continental Army camp, and she would wash clothes and care for the sick and wounded. Also doing all the things that all the women were doing behind the scenes, but no one seemed to appreciate.
Right.
This is where the nickname Molly Pitcher comes from. Molly being a common nickname for Mary, Pitcher representing the buckets women would carry for cleaning and bringing water to the troops and going about their life. On June 28th of 1778, Mary Hayes enlisted to serve with Captain Francis Proctor's company in the Pennsylvania Artillery.
Okay.
So, I guess they let her join. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't think they were saying no at this point.
Yeah, they're like, we'll take you. We'll take you.
And many of the men who knew Mary described her as a... Okay, and I know she says she can read and write. Just remember that.
Okay.
Quote, 22-year-old illiterate pregnant woman who smoked and chewed tobacco and swore as well as any of the male soldiers.
Okay.
I think I like her too.
Yeah.
If that's the vibe she's going for, I'm here for it. And she was actually pretty popular among the groups.
Oh, that's
because
good.
she worked hard. And she was brave as shit. Nothing was stopping this woman.
Oh, I love that.
And during the Battle of Monmouth on June the 28th of 1778, about 50 soldiers died of just dehydration that day.
Yeah, the Battle of Monmouth was a shit show.
Yes. And as many men died from gunfire as they did from just thirst and dehydration. Hayes went back and forth all day into the battle, bringing water to these soldiers from a spring.
Oh, wow.
She stayed on the battlefield, caring for wounded soldiers, bringing water, until her own husband was shot.
Oh.
He was wounded.
Mm-hmm.
He, just so to quell your fears, he's lived for a while longer.
Okay.
Her husband was wounded during this battle. She, too, decided to take his place at the cannon and began firing.
That's amazing.
And this is, we see her badassness depicted in that painting.
I love it. I love the cannon. I love the flowing dress. I love, like her hair, her little hair, like blowing, like there's an explosion behind her, like so badass.
And her face is like...
That's
again,
resoluteness.
You hurt my husband.
I will fuck you up.
I would shoot someone with a cannon if they hurt my husband. But
yes,
I feel that. So, after the battle was over, legend has it that George Washington asked about the courageous woman who was on the battlefield and promoted her to a non-commissioned officer. So then she started carrying around the nickname Sergeant Molly.
I love that. I love it so much.
So William Hayes unfortunately died in 1786. So he did live another 8 years. Yeah. 8 years after. But his battle wounds just... Yeah. Did him in eventually. When he died, he left a very large amount of land to Mary. And 7 years, sorry, I had to do math. 7 years later, she married a man named John Macaulay. And he, too, was a veteran of the American Revolutionary War. But it was said that he spent all of her inheritance and then disappeared sometime after 1807.
I hate that.
I hate that too. So she spent the rest of her days living in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, working just as a general servant, just domestic housekeeper. And in 1822, the Pennsylvania state legislature awarded her a pension of $40 per year for her service.
Oh.
But she died a year later.
Oh no, that's so sad.
January 22nd of 1832. And at her burial site, she is under the name Molly McCauley. But she has a cannon and a statue of Molly Pitcher over her tombstone.
Aw.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I know.
When you were talking about her taking over for her husband and finding her cannon, I was like, I've definitely read this story in like a elementary school book.
Yeah. When I read Molly Pitcher, I was like, that is bringing back some deep-seated memories that I forgot I had.
Mm-hmm. Like in one of those like really tiny little readers that are only like 5 or 6 pages that you would get in elementary school. I remember reading something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's, God, these women were badass. And we're only talking about 3 women today. There are so many that were like spies.
Yeah.
And, I want to get into spies.
I don't know if it's I think it might be the Civil War, but I have a book about like 4 women who were spies during the Civil War. I'm pretty sure it's the Civil War, and I haven't finished it, but it was good. Like what I've read so far.
I read once, and I'm sure I've said this on the pod. I think there was someone who was alive during the Civil War, World War I, and World War II.
I mean, it was like 80 years apart, so it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he served in World War I and then died after World War II concluded.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine being like a small child in the Civil War and living all the way through those events? I mean, we're talking, he lived through not just like born in the Civil War, saw the aftermath of that. And then there was a late 1800s recession, right?
Yeah, because I think you mentioned it in our bonus episode called like the Great Panic or something like that.
The Great something Panic, yeah. And then World War I, and then Prohibition.
And then the Great Depression.
And then the Great Depression, and then World War II.
He's just like, I'm just imagining this one person like living through all of this and be like, is there any joy in the world ever? Well, and he also like lived through Jim Crow and like all of that, and he never even saw it repealed because Jim Crow wasn't even repealed until like the late 60s, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't realize it was that late.
Yeah, it was during the Civil Rights Movement.
We're going to have to cover that eventually.
Because we've talked about it a lot. But
yeah, we've danced around it a lot.
Because, I mean, Wilma Rudolph, I mean, she died in I think the 80s or 90s. And she lived through Jim Crow.
Yeah. She had more rights in other countries than she did at home.
Yeah.
Which is wild behavior.
Yeah. Go listen to the Wilma Rudolph episode. It's really good. Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
It was a really good one. Oh my God, we can say that. A couple years?
A couple years? Or it was last year. I think it was last year.
I vaguely remember being in the closet at that point. So it must have been over a year ago.
It was. It was last February. Not this most recent one, but the one before.
Right. Okay.
It's like a year and a half ago.
Right.
Anyway.
This
isn't a Wilma Rudolph episode.
We squirreled off so bad.
Whoa.
Wow. Okay. Back to the Revolutionary War. So our last woman, I do have a hair bit more on her. She seems to be the most famous, and you'll see why, because her entry into the war was a little different.
Okay.
So, born in December 17th of 1760 in Plymouth, Massachusetts, she is the youngest of the 3 we're talking about, and she was one of 7 children. by Jonathan Sampson Jr. and Deborah Bradford Sampson. And the
What'd you say
Sampsons
her name
struggled.
was?
Deborah Sampson.
Okay, thank you. Somehow I missed her name.
Oh, you're good. So the Sampsons struggled financially, and Jonathan, it was reported that Jonathan failed to return from a sea voyage trip. There are rumors that he just fled his family and started a new family somewhere else, but that cannot be confirmed nor denied, so I'm just going to throw it out there. He either died on a ship or ran away and left his 7 kids and wife at home.
Wow.
And her poor mom did her best to do, keep it together.
Right.
But 7 kids in the 1700s and you have no husband is an impossible task. And she ended up having to find different households for her children to go to be taken care of.
Oh, that's so sad.
And at the age of 10, so that happened, her dad left when she was 5. 5 years later, at 10, she became an indentured servant to Deacon Benjamin Thomas. And he was a farmer in Middleborough, and he had a very large family. Now, this is not a sob story. She was treated well.
Okay.
She did have to work. I mean, she had chores and jobs to do around the house. She had to teach herself how to read and write and do pretty much everything because, unfortunately, Deacon Benjamin Thomas did not believe that women needed an education. So she was very eager to learn, and she actually learned from Thomas's sons.
Oh, so wow.
The sons would be like sharing their material, and she would teach herself.
Aww.
Which was really nice.
Yeah.
So at the age of 18, she was free to go. And she worked as a teacher during summer sessions in 1779 and 1780. And then in the winter, she was a weaver. She was also very good at woodworking and mechanics. So she made things like sleds, other woodworking tools, baskets, weaving tools, pie crimpers that she would sell door to door like Mary Kay. And she was just a very highly motivated person and very talented when it came to making things. She was very smart. She was also, and this is very relevant to the story, she was also between 5'7" and 5'8".
Okay, so she was tall
She was tall. The average male, the average dude at the time, was like 2 to 3 inches shorter than that. So she was taller than most men around her. And at the time, most women were 5 feet tall. Mm-hmm. So she...
Damn.
towered.
Wow.
Yes. And it was also said that she wasn't slim, but built more tall and broad.
Yeah.
And I even wrote this. It says, which sounds mean to point out, but it's very important for what she decides to do next.
Okay.
In early 1782, she dressed up like a dude and joined the army disguised as a man under a fake alias. I forgot to write down the first alias name. She received a bonus, but then ended up not joining up with the unit like she was supposed to because apparently someone had recognized her.
Oh, wow.
So she ended up having to pay the bonus back, had no further punishments.
Okay.
They were like, you silly woman, get out of here with this nonsense. Apparently, her church found out about this. And they said that she was kind of known for her loose and unchristian behavior, which I don't really know exactly what that means. That can mean anything with like sleeping with people to gambling to swearing to
like,
God knows what back then.
There's absolutely no telling. It could be
Yes.
like you like hitch your skirt up a little higher to like give yourself
Yes.
more room to walk. Like there's no telling.
She had a she had an attitude instead of just being like, yes, sir. Like, it could mean so many things.
Mm-hmm.
They found out she dressed as a dude and tried to join the army and kicked her out of the church.
Oh my God.
And she never went back, but she also didn't really seem to give two shits.
Well, all
like,
right.
Fine. Whatever. So then she went to Uxbridge, Massachusetts, which was further away from home, and did it again.
She's very determined.
She's wised up this time because she was like, obviously someone from my hometown recognized me, so I'm just going to go where nobody knows who I am.
Yeah, makes sense.
And she joined under the name of Robert Shirtliff.
Okay.
And she joined the 4th Massachusetts Regiment. And she was assigned to Captain George Webb's company of light infantry. This infantry was actually a very elite unit, and they picked typically taller and broader men for these units. That means no one would ever guess that a woman was in there because women just weren't that tall.
Right. Because, they're a foot shorter.
Yeah. And it is also important to say that at the time, no one really bothered with medical checks with people. As long as they had their front teeth and a working thumb and forefinger, you were allowed in. And I thought that was so funny.
Very little standards.
Yes, you have both your front teeth. Cool. And I think that had to do with, like, loading a musket. Like, they probably, like, held it in their teeth and then, whatever. So,
right.
As long as you have the working parts to make gun go boom, you're in.
Yes.
Like, so she was given a very dangerous task in this infantry of scouting neutral territory and assess British buildups of men and material. And so she would go in and do some reconnaissance. And then George Washington kind of would contemplate if they wanted to attack. And then she also was in charge of, during those attacks, in charge of fast flank coverage. So protecting the units from behind, sides, all around.
Okay.
And in June of 1782, just forgot we were towards the end of the war now. I was like, wait, that's too late. But no. In June of 1782, Sampson and 2 other sergeants led about 30 infantrymen on a trip that ended with a confrontation one-on-one with Tories. So, and the Tories were the other soldiers, right? That was a nickname for them?
Tories were probably nicknames for, like, the British.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so, but I didn't want to misspeak. So,
yeah.
She ended up leading a raid on a Tory's home that resulted in the capture of 15 men.
Holy shit.
And she also claimed that she fought during the siege of Yorktown. A lot of people said they were at Yorktown.
Yeah.
That one is not confirmed or denied, but she said she was there. So,
okay.
Whatever. For over 2 years, her being a woman was not detected.
Wow.
She had a couple close calls because she had a gash on her forehead from a sword and was also shot in her thigh. But then I heard someone say shoulder, so it might have been 2 separate instances that she was shot. She dug the bullets out herself to avoid seeking medical attention.
Damn.
So no one would find out.
Badass. Holy shit.
Bad ass. And unfortunately, she was discovered, it says a year and a half into her service. See, things are not adding up.
Yeah.
She was either there it was either a year and a half to 2 years into her service. Somewhere in there. Sources contradict each other when they get this far back. Sorry, guys. While in Philadelphia, she became ill during an epidemic. She was taken to a hospital, lost consciousness, and that's when they found out she was a woman.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Thankfully, this is not Mulan where they tried to kill her.
That's good.
Yes. She received honorable discharge October 23rd of 1783, and she returned to Massachusetts. And out of all of these women, she ended up having kind of the happiest ending. So on April the 7th of 1785, she married a man named Benjamin Gannett, and they would go on to have 3 children, Earl, Mary, and Patience. She had a book written about her in 1797 entitled The Female Review, or Memoirs of an American Young Lady. Those are, I think you can still get copies of those. I think
that's cool.
The Memoirs of an American Young Lady was one of those books that you can buy. And she received a military pension from the state of Massachusetts. It did not say it was half. I believe it was a full pension, if I'm not mistaken, which is incredible.
That's very impressive.
Yes. And she kind of led just a typical farmer's wife life after that. Aww. But in 1802, she began, she had a year-long lecture tour about her experiences. And she was the first woman in America to do that. And sometimes she even dressed in her full military regalia.
That's amazing.
She's such a badass.
Such a badass. And it sounds like she was like more socially accepted doing this, you know?
Yeah.
Like people wanted to hear her talk and wanted to see her. That's so cool.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So, unfortunately, on April 29th of 1827, she died of yellow fever at the age of 66. And 4 years after that, her husband petitioned Congress for pay as the spouse of a soldier.
Oh, okay.
Even though they were not married during the time of her service.
Yeah.
In 1837, so 27, so that was 31. It took them 6 years. The committee concluded that in the history of the Revolution, quote, furnished no other similar example of female heroism, fidelity, and courage. He was awarded the money, but he died before he received it.
Oh.
Which sucks. But it's a thought that counts, right?
Yeah, they actually...
Maybe not in his case, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, if it didn't take them 6 years to decide on it, then, you know.
I mean, he probably died from not being able to afford medical attention or some shit like that, but whatever.
Wow.
That's what we have. It's a short one today.
You know, and that's okay. And this was a really awesome episode to learn more about these women that aren't... I mean, I'd only ever heard of one, and the one I'd heard of was a fictionalized version of a real person.
Yes,
or several
it makes
real
me
people.
so mad that, like, they get just overlooked, even though no one asked... Those first 2 women, no one asked them, Margaret or Molly, to pick up the cannon. No one asked them to do it.
They just did it.
They just did it. You don't fuck with their husbands.
Yeah, seriously.
I feel so bad for Margaret.
I know. That's so sad. Well, this was great, Emily. Thank you. Thanks for getting the word out about these awesome ladies.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out something about the Revolutionary War, and I was like, I was like Googling like not known facts, and then Margaret's Deborah's story came up, and then I realized how little I had, and I was like, were there more? I don't know. And one source were like, there were other women who fought, and I was like, oh, thank God.
Who are these other women?
Who are these women? I went on this long list, and there are spies, and I mean, Martha Washington was also mentioned like a few times in helping, and I don't know, I feel like we should go like a deep dive on women in war.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about women in war a few times, like today's episode. We've talked about Virginia Hall.
Yeah, that was an amazing episode. Go listen to that one, guys.
Please do. I worked very hard on it.
So good. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time.
We talked about one of our very first episodes. Her name was, what was it? Virginia, who survived Titanic
Violet
sinking.
Jessup.
Yes, thank you. Violet Jessup.
Yes.
And Hedy Lamarr. She didn't fight, but she helped a lot in World War II and other stuff. So women definitely have had their place in war forever.
Yeah. And they just get glossed over.
Right.
Which sucks.
Yes. Well, we're here to talk about them. So you guys know about it. You guys can spread the word to your friends. Or just have them listen to our podcast so they can hear for themselves.
Yeah. Please like and share. I know we don't ask enough to do that, but please like and share us because we like doing this. Yes. We're not going to stop. So, people might as well listen.
Yeah. Even if it's just Chris listening to us.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris. We'll keep making these for you, Chris.
Yeah. Anything you want us to talk about. All right. Well, socials?
Let's do socials.
Cool. You can find us on Facebook.
Ill-Equipped History Podcast Group and Page.
Instagram.
At Ill-Equipped History.
Gmail.
illequippedhistory@gmail.com.
TikTok.
At Ill-Equipped History.
And Patreon.
Patreon.com/Ill-Equipped History.
Yeah. And if you guys are listening to this the day of, we hope you have a very, very happy 4th of July tomorrow.
Yes.
We hope you have so much fun and eat hot dogs and apple pie.
And don't get blown up by fireworks, please.
Yes. Please do not shoot them out of your hand. I know it's fun. Don't. Unless it's a bottle rocket or a sparkler. Don't. Put it on the ground.
Please run away.
I have seen an entire 60-foot pontoon boat be blown up on a river. It is this. Oh my God!
It's gone down in legend.
It has gone down in legend. We watched it with our own two eyes. He did drive. Okay, so now I got to give some backstory. So the river that we grew up on, every year, a guy named Jerry would shoot a shit ton. It's literally the best fireworks show I've ever seen. Sometimes we would be there for an hour and a half and we were like, when is this ending? It was so long. It was amazing though. And he would shoot them off of this giant pontoon boat that used to be a tour boat called the Hiwassee Queen. And one year, I'm sure you could look this up, guys. I'm giving you enough information to look it up. It was on the Hiwassee River and he was shooting them off, but he was using the cardboard stands instead of he upgraded to metal tubing after this.
Yeah.
One of them exploded as it fell over, shot into the stack of fireworks, and then the fireworks started going off the side of the boat, caught the top of the boat on fire, and everyone jumped off of this boat, beers in hand, swimming to the shore because you don't leave a beer behind. And we watched him. He stayed in the metal bathroom on this pontoon boat. Every time there was a lull, he would run out and kick the fireworks off the sides of the boat. The canopy's on fire, and he drove that motherfucker back to the dock, and they just put the fire out. So then every year after that, we were like, oh my God, is he going to do it? Because every year before that, we were like, he's going to blow up this boat. Because there's always like a stray.
Yeah.
And after that, we were like, oh my God, is he going to do it again? Is he going to do it again?
I learned this story. I started going to 4th of July events with Emily and her family, and they told me the story. And I would always go like, I want to see a show. I hope everyone's okay, but I want to see a show.
Yeah, no one was seriously hurt. They brought like a helicopter in. I don't really think anybody was hurt. It was so much. Oh my God.
And I'm just imagining you all like sitting in your lawn chairs like along the shore.
On a
just
dock.
Like, yeah. I mean, what can y'all do? Y'all can't do anything. So y'all just have to sit there and watch.
We were just going like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. That will forever be my favorite 4th of July memory. Only because no one died. It was fine.
Yeah.
But just them watching grown men in the dark. It was such a beautiful sight because these fireworks are going off and you can see the silhouette of men with beers in their hands jumping off the side of this pontoon boat and swimming like 100 feet to shore like they were out there in the dark with other boats out. Nobody got hit. I was so shocked.
That's so funny.
The news showed up. It was a thing. So guys, you might be able to look it up. I think it was before we graduated high school.
I'm pretty sure it was.
So probably somewhere in the 2000s, I think is, maybe 2008, 2009, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure one of y'all can find it. I believe in you.
That's a redneck 4th of July right there.
Our family nicknamed that campground Foxworthy Village for a reason.
I love it. So yeah, don't have that happen on your 4th of July, or do.
No. Or do, as long as nobody gets hurt. Don't get hurt, guys.
Yeah.
Do what you want. Don't get hurt.
Please
don't
keep
hurt anybody else.
all of your limbs and all of your skin.
Yes. If your dog has anxiety, drug them. And a little bit of Benadryl goes a long way. Actually, another story. One year, Annabelle got out my parents' Dachshund, and she was freaking out at the river because we were there again. And they couldn't find this dog.
Oh, no.
All night. They could not find her the next day.
Oh, no.
And then the next morning was when we were supposed to leave. And my dad said he was driving past this camper and saw their dog on this other camper's front porch.
Oh.
And he just did like reconnaissance mission, ran up, grabbed his own dog, put him in the Jeep. And then they got down the road and they realized that she smelled like weed.
Oh, no.
So I guess somebody had found her and realized that she was like freaking out and got her high.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
She was very chill for a while, though.
Well, that's good. My poor dog, I think I mentioned it before, is completely traumatized. Thankfully, he's like pretty much deaf now, so he can't hear fireworks when they go off because he's old AF. But when we were in high school, I was with an ex and my dad at our house shooting off fireworks in our front yard, and my dad was drunk, very, very drunk, and we were shooting off fireworks, and one of the things like tipped over, so then fireworks started going off and exploding against my house. And we just stood there and watched, and my poor dog, he's like a Chihuahua mix. He was like running around trying to avoid all of the fireworks shooting off into our yard and against the house. And we were just standing there, and my dad was just laughing the entire time. We're like, do something. You're the adult here. We're children. And he was like, LOL, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. So,
oh my God, poor Jack.
My Jack has trauma from fireworks.
He never forgot it. That was like 15 years ago.
It was 15 years ago. So thankfully, and like anytime he heard thunder or loud noises, he would like just shake and try to hide under like the couch or the bed. But now he can't hear anything. So
Poor thing.
I know.
Thankfully, we don't get that many fireworks out where I live. You have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
There might be one occasionally, but nothing too bad. And my dogs don't really give a crap.
Yeah.
So,
and you'll have a lot of trees where you live. It's probably not a good idea to shoot fireworks.
No, you'd have. That's why I'm like, you go find a field somewhere, not where I live.
Yeah.
It's wooded. All right.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.